Greetings. Perry Pope, Preventative Maintenance Coordinator and also a principal member of the Buffalo Sewer Authority's outreach team. The video that you have selected is a recording of a presentation that was presented by one of my colleagues.
This presentation occurred May 14th at the Matt Urban Center, located at 1081 Broadway in the Fillmore district.
If you are viewing this presentation after that date, subsequent events could have a material effect on this information.
By presenting this information, Buffalo Sewer has not undertaken any obligation to update the information beyond the date of the presentation.
Data and other information provided are not warranted as to completeness or accuracy and are subject to change without notice.
The views, policies, programs, and practices reflected herein also are subject to change without notice.
This presentation is provided for your information and convenience only.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending our Queen City Clean Waters Council District meeting for the Fillmore District in the city of Buffalo. So many familiar faces. I look like I seen y'all last night. But nevertheless, thank you again for attending. Tonight, we're going to be doing a presentation for the Fillmore Council District, some of the projects that are going to be going on and happening in the program. Again, before we get started, do want to do a little bit more housekeeping. Those of you who just came and are new, restrooms are located on the second floor. If you go to the back and to your left and get on the elevator and go to the second floor, there you will find the restrooms. We have some wonderful food, same caterer as last night at our Lovejoy Council District meeting from the Food Experience, Chef Ramon. Let's give him a hand for the wonderful food that he has prepared. And tonight we want to make sure that we are informing you about the wonderful happenings that's going on here. We do want to recognize the residents, those of you who have come. A specific shout out, we do have with us the president of the Northland Beltline Taxpayers Association, Ms. Stephanie Lee. Thank you so much for joining us. She's with us today. Thank you. As we approach tonight, we are going to have just a brief welcome and overview. And then I'm going to turn it over to Rosie, who's going to do our presentation. And then afterward, we'll have a chance for some question and answer. And then to close out, I'm going to talk a little bit about engagement, how we can remain involved, and we'll do a little exercise with our interactive map. For those of you who have been wondering, Queen City Clean Waters, what is this? So just a brief overview, the Queen City Clean Waters is Buffalo Sewer Authority's long-term investment in clean water and climate resilience. It is the city's response to the EPA mandate to reduce sewer overflows into our waterways. The goal of the Queen City Clean Waters program is to reduce combined sewer overflows into our rivers and streams and to improve water quality and public health. It's also used for infrastructure investment to drive neighborhood revitalization. Some of you may have seen some trifolds last year. We've done some engagement throughout the city. There was a prelude, you may have heard about it, but tonight we're going to have a little bit more information, some background, and then we'll talk about what's going on in the district. I have the pleasure of introducing the program director, the one who's overseeing all of this stuff, all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I will tell you, just like I told the group last night, I am not making a claim that he's a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I understand what happened in February, but it's okay. He's a good guy. I want to take this moment to introduce Mr. Walt Walker with TY Lynn, who's going to give a brief introduction and have a few words.
Thank you, Art. All right, good evening. On behalf of the program consultant team working with Rosie and Buffalo Sewer, I want to send a welcome and thank you for joining us. This event this evening is one of just many touch points that we're going to have with community and greater stakeholders over the next decade as we advance Queen City Clean Waters. So we look forward to engaging and collaborating with community members in the city of Buffalo in this journey. Now, for me personally, I've been working with Buffalo Sewer for going on almost 6 years, working on a variety of projects. And with the time that I've spent here, including a 3-month residency last month with my wife and young son last year, Buffalo is like a second home to me. So not only am I excited on this unique initiative of Queen City Clean Waters, combining water, infrastructure, community, and partnerships. This is an exciting initiative where everyone in the city will have the opportunity to participate, prosper, share in the social, economic, and environmental benefits of this really once-in-a-generation investment in water infrastructure. So we look forward to your input, your ideas, and we encourage you to spread the word to your neighbors, family, and friends within the city of Buffalo to participate, to contribute, find the way that where you want to get involved to participate in Buffalo Sewer's Queen City Clean Waters. So with that, I'm going to turn it over the formal part of this discussion to Rosie Noble, Principal Sanitary Engineer at Buffalo Sewer. We'll get into a break for some Q&A, and then Art will kick things off after the break for some of the community engagement strategies and opportunities. With that, turn it over to Rosie.
Okay, so let's see. First, we'd like to just take a moment to remember and honor the loved ones lost on May 14th, 2022 in the massacre at Tops. Their memories live on in our hearts. And thank you for taking that time. As a disclaimer, this presentation is being offered on May 14th, 2025. We want to be sure that it's recognized that this is an evolving program. It will change over time as we continue to learn new data and continue to improve on this program. And so the slides that I'm presenting today are true today. They may not necessarily reflect the reality in a month, in a year, 10 years down the line. And so again, today's May 14th, 2025. This is the best that we have today. We are going to be covering some background information on the sewer system in the city of Buffalo, how we got here, what the overall plan for Queen City Clean Waters is, and then some specific projects within the Fillmore Council District. And then we're going to, again, take that time for questions and answers. And when we come back together, Art's going to present some opportunities to stay engaged as we move forward. A few pieces of terminology here. The first is the word weir. It is a special kind of dam that is meant to allow water to flow over it under certain circumstances. And so frequently I will just call them dams because that's easier to visualize for most people. But I may say the word weir. And again, it allows water to flow over it under certain circumstances, but most of the time water stays on one side of it, and it's only when the water gets up high enough that it flows over. So in the city of Buffalo, we have a combined sewer system, and that system means that both sanitary sewage, so what you flush down the toilet, what you drain through your sink, combines with stormwater in our same pipe. And because that pipe is only so big, when the rainwater comes down heavy enough, the system is designed to overflow. And these overflows, when they occur over these dam structures, these weirs, and that event is called a combined sewer overflow. And it goes out a combined sewer outfall. So I may say the word CSO. Usually when I'm saying CSO, that means combined sewer overflow, but sometimes when people say CSO, they're actually referring to the point where it discharges rather than the actual discharge. GI is green infrastructure. That's the use of natural systems to hold water in place where it falls in the form of rain or snow, instead of having it go into the sewer system. Inline storage is the keeping of sewage and stormwater in the inline of the existing sewer system and holding it there until there's space downstream for it to flow within the system. Offline is, as you would think, taking some of that flow off of line, off the existing sewer system, parking it for a little while during a storm event, and then letting it come back into the system when the storm has passed. Real-time control is the use of computers and computer actuating structures, and so gates or valves or other mechanical devices to hold the water in place, and then in real time, so based on sensors upstream and downstream, those computers controlling that system. And then an SPP is a term that Buffalo Sewer Authority in particular uses for those weirs or those dams that we talked about earlier. So a little background. Buffalo's sewer system goes back to the 1830s. Formally, it really goes back to 1848. Between 1848 and the 1830s, there was a period when some private landowners put in their own sewers, but those were replaced in 1848. And the reason that those landowners first were putting in sewers was because they were living in downtown Buffalo, and downtown Buffalo was a wetland. It was a swamp. And anytime that it rained, and even days after it rained, it would be squishy. And not only was there rainwater that people were squishing through, they were also squishing through sewage. And so the private landowners tried to drain their own properties, and eventually, in 1848, the city put in some major sewer lines to drain the streets. And part of the driving factor behind that was a series of cholera epidemics, because in the 1840s and 1830s and even 1852, it wasn't widely understood that drinking sewage was what was causing cholera, but it was understood that stinky areas where people were encountering stinky areas, that's where people were getting sick. And those stinky areas was where there was open sewage. And so they started putting in these pipes to drain the streets, but they were then draining them into the canal network that made up downtown Buffalo. And so it took it from some areas of the city, but then put it into other areas of the city. And so there continued to be epidemics even into 1852. And throughout the 1850s and into the early 1860s, there continued to be an expansion of the sewer network around these red lines, these trunk lines in downtown Buffalo. Of course, 1862, you then had the Civil War. And throughout the Civil War years, there wasn't much build out of the sewer network, but you did have people moving from the East Coast out west, troop movements into the area. And after the war, there was a big push towards westward expansion. And so Buffalo became a major hub right after the Civil War. And there became a recognition that there really needed to be better and bigger and more sewers, or people were going to get sick. And so Colonel George Waring, a Union colonel, was recruited to come to Buffalo and to design the sewer system in the city of Buffalo, south of Scajaquada Creek, north of the river. And one of the big things that he was charged with dealing with was a canal that ran under where the 190 runs today. And so you had the Erie Canal running along the Niagara River, and then down, okay, this is not working out well. Running down in downtown Buffalo, you had the Main and Hamburg Canal running out to what is known as Larkinville today, but in those days it was known as the hydraulics. And it was called the hydraulics because it was fed by the hydraulic canal, and that was what was driving a lot of the industry back in the 19th century. But that canal and all of these canals had a lot of stagnant water, and that stagnant water was breeding disease. And so people were noticing how badly it smelled and that the people along those canals were getting sick. And so the Swan Trunk was constructed from what is Larkinville today through downtown Buffalo, running almost directly under City Hall, and then up along the western edge of the city, and at Albany Street, it makes a hard right across Bird Island and out to the Niagara River. And so this sewer was constructed to drain the sewer system in the city of Buffalo, and also part of those canals when it was dry weather. So these big gates would open during dry weather, let the canals drain through them, drain out to the Niagara River. And then during wet weather, those gates would shut, and the stormwater would be filling up that pipe and going out to the Niagara River so that the city could drain. And then there was additional sewers constructed along Genesee Street, along Bird, and then around Main Street. It makes a jog, and then it becomes Ferry. And it continued on Ferry all the way to Bailey Avenue. And so this whole system was built out in the 1880s and into the 1890s. It was fully constructed by 1900 between the Scajaquada Creek in the north, the Buffalo River in the south. The whole city had sewers during that period. And this construction of sewers meant that the people of the city of Buffalo were no longer getting sick from waterborne illnesses. Now, they were dealing with Scajaquada Creek, especially east of Main Street, overflowing its banks fairly routinely and causing issues with people's homes, flooding them out, and having other issues. And so the community demanded that City Hall do something about Scajaquada Creek. And so the city government dropped the level of the creek 10 feet and put it inside of a channelized concrete pipe from the eastern edge of the city all the way to Forest Lawn. And this became known as the Scajaquada Drain. And flowing into the Scajaquada Drain were a whole bunch of sewers. During this period as well, that Main and Hamburg Canal that I talked about, and a connecting canal, the Ohio Turning Basin, those were covered over and formed the Hamburg Drain and the Ohio Drain. And so those areas are running just off of where the Fillmore district is today. It keeps changing on the maps whether they're in or out, but I think they're out right now. So in 1907, the city of Buffalo, the people of the city of Buffalo weren't getting sick from waterborne illnesses. However, the people of Niagara Falls, 0.2% of that population was dying each year from typhoid, which is a waterborne illness. And the reason that they were dying, and this was demonstrated by 1918, was because the Niagara River, where they were drawing their water from, was being polluted with the sewage from the people of the city of Buffalo. And so the New York State Health Department, after going back and forth with the city government for about 15, 20 years, finally came down and said, in March of 1935, you will construct a treatment facility to treat sewage and sewers to get your sewage there. So this is a primary sewage treatment plant. That just means that it is a physical plant. So it takes the physical debris, and so it's grit, it's rags, it's and it's raw sewage, and that is taken out of the sewage, and then the water that is left over is dosed with chlorine and sent out to the Niagara River. And then the sewers that get the flow there, they're called interceptor sewers because their job is to intercept the existing sewers and take the dry weather flow to the treatment plant and most of the wet weather flow. So even when it's raining, most of the flow has to get to that treatment plant. Now, this is 1935, the height of the Great Depression. The city of Buffalo was just about bankrupt. And so the Buffalo Sewer Authority was founded on April 8th, 1935, to take out a giant credit card so that this work could be done. And so that giant credit card in 1935 had a limit of $15 million, which is about $344 million today. And with that credit card, this work was done. Now, very shortly after that work was finished, World War II broke out. And after the war, the city of Buffalo's demographics started changing rapidly as people moved out of the city and started moving to the suburbs, and the population of the city of Buffalo started to decline. When the 33 came through the city, we talked about that bird and ferry trunk that ran from Niagara Street to Bailey. It got cut in half by the 33. And so the western half suddenly had capacity for twice as much flow as was coming there, and the eastern half had to be rerouted through a new system of sewers to get around the trench that had just been dug through the city. New pump stations came through with the 33 to pump storm water into the system because the 33 is sunken down, and you had to get back up to the level of the waterways. And also, you suddenly had 6 to 12 lanes of hard surface coming through the middle of the city, and so there was a lot more stormwater being added to the system. And so that exacerbated problems with managing combined sewers. The other thing that happened with the construction of the highway network in the city of Buffalo to allow those suburbs to grow was the 198 was put through on the west side, and while at grade and not creating as many issues and not actually tied into the combined sewer system, instead you had separate storm sewers going directly out to Skajackwada Creek. And so if you have a car accident, if anything spills, it goes into the storm receivers, and that goes right out into Skajackwada Creek and immediately is causing water pollution in Skajackwada Creek. And then the 190 was put in on top of the old Erie Canal bed, which is also where the Swan Trunk and many of those interceptor sewers and the Hamburg drain already existed. And so it made all kinds of issues with access to those existing sewers, which complicates engineering when you're trying to modify those sewers. So that was through to about 1970 that sewers were being constructed in reaction to those highway networks. In 1972, the Clean Water Act came in, and the Clean Water Act required that the city of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sewer Authority create a more advanced treatment facility. And so we talked about how there was a primary treatment facility with just physical treatment. Well, with the Clean Water Act, the secondary system, which is a biological treatment facility, had to be constructed. And what this does is we have these lovely poop-eating bacteria that like to go for nice swims in these tanks you see in the middle, and sit around and eat poop, get nice and fat. They go out to the outer circular tanks, and out there they take a nice siesta and they fall to the bottom of the tanks. And then some of them get to go back around for another round, and some of them go off to solids handling and are processed as solids. And the drinking and the water that comes out the top is then mixed with chlorine. It's allowed to have contact with that chlorine, and then it is discharged out to the waterway. So that's the biological treatment facility, the secondary treatment facility. The other pieces that came into being with the Clean Water Act was in 1935, when the Buffalo Sewer Authority was founded. It was founded with the mandate to deal with stormwater and sanitary sewage. It was not given the mandate to deal with industrial sewage. And so when the Sewer Authority tried to tell the industries that were along the Buffalo River and the outer harbor that they had to connect and they had to treat their industrial sewage, those industries turned around and said, you don't have the mandate to do that. And so it was only under the Clean Water Act that those industries then had to change their ways, and a system was constructed out on Kelly Island, out at the outer harbor, to pump and gravity flow and pump and gravity flow, and ultimately go underneath the Buffalo River and out to Canal Side to bring flows from that outer harbor to the city of Buffalo and ultimately to the Bird Island Treatment Facility. And then the last piece is the Scajaquada Tunnel. So a lot of sewage was still going out to both the Scajaquada Drain and Scajaquada Creek. And the town of Cheektowaga did not have a treatment facility. And so in the 1970s, what was determined was we will construct a 90-inch diameter deep tunnel across the city of Buffalo, pick up most of the flow from the town of Cheektowaga, carry it across the city, treat it at the Bird Island Treatment Plant, and take a lot of those flows that are going into Scajaquada Creek and the Scajaquada Drain across the city of Buffalo and bring them across the city in this tunnel. And again, they'll go into the existing interceptor system and out to Bird Island. And so that's that green line you see running across the city at the bottom there. So that's what the Buffalo Sewer Authority had done up until the 1990s. We had continually made improvements in our system, but combined sewers still overflowed during wet weather. And they still overflowed in 1994 at least 69 times per year, sometimes more than that. And so in 1994, the United States government issued a policy to all combined sewer system communities that they needed to reduce the number of times that there were overflows occurring. And they needed to figure out a plan to do that. Buffalo's system was incredibly complex. It wasn't an easy fix. And so it took 10 years to figure out what was happening in the system and come up with a plan for a solution. So that was submitted in 2004. It took EPA and New York State 3 years to look at that plan and come up with questions about it and say, well, it's now 2007. Some of the data that you collected when you started to develop this plan is now 10 years old. You need to go back and rethink this and collect some more data. And so that's what Buffalo Sewer Authority did. While they were still doing that, under pressure from political entities, the US EPA started a consent decree negotiation. But then ultimately in 2012, the Sewer Authority sent a plan to New York State and the federal government saying, this is how we would like to address combined sewer overflows. And we'd like to do it not just with traditional technologies of big storage tanks and tunnels, but we want to incorporate computers and gates and store throughout the storm and let water flow when it can. And we'd also like to incorporate this new technology of green infrastructure, of using plants and using storage in little locations throughout the city so that we can optimize the system and reduce flooding in areas within the city that have localized low spots as well. And so in 2014, March 18th, 2014, that plan was approved. And over the next 10 years, Buffalo Sewer Authority put in a lot of that inline storage, real-time control technology. And so if you were off at Broadway and Oak, you've seen that, where we stored in the line that was coming off of the 33, one of those new sewers there. We've done it at Lang and Hazelwood, on Bailey, up in Hurdle, at Military, or well, Hurdle at Deer, on Bird, and areas throughout the city where there was excess capacity in the system. We put in these gates so that we could store in place. We also put in green infrastructure. We put some in out on Williams Street, where there's the big median that used to be lane to lane, hard surface. And then there's also porous pavement out on Williams Street. On Carlton, there's porous pavement. On Niagara Street, we have the rain gardens. And on Northland, there's rain gardens as well. And so throughout the city of Buffalo, we've started to put in this green infrastructure. We've started doing this real-time control. But at the same time, we were asked to go and redo the model because, again, now the model is another 10, 15 years old. The metering data, some of it is actually 20 years old at this point. And when we did that, what we found is if we kept going with the plan from 2014, we would not reach our end goal with that work. And so we would be spending a lot of money over the next 10 years and not getting to finish. And what do I mean we don't get to finish? Well, with the Buffalo River, our goal is to only overflow a maximum of 6 times per year. If we did all those projects from 2014, we would still be overflowing 15 times per year. With the Niagara River, the goal is 9. We would be going over the weirs 14 times per year. And with Scajacquada Creek, the goal is 4, and we'd be going over 19 times per year. And with Scajacquada Creek, it is tied right into the Black Rock Canal. So there's really one system with the Black Rock Canal and Scajacquada Creek. Not only is it 19 times per year, but those 19 times impact the ability of that water body to be used the way that its best use is. And it limits the ability for people to recreate in the waters of the Scajaquada Creek and the Black Rock Canal. And when we took a deeper dive on that data, what we found is that there was 174 of those dams, those weirs, that already in 2022, they don't overflow more times than they're supposed to. They're already in compliance. We have met our goal. With another 13 of those weirs, if we follow the 2014 plan, we would meet compliance. It's really 18 weirs that are the problem. And those 18 weirs, a lot of them are on the east side of the city of Buffalo around Scajaquada Drain. But then there's also ones that are kind of running a lot of the area of the Fillmore district along the Buffalo River and the Erie Basin, and then as the Erie Basin becomes the Black Rock Canal. And so realizing that we wouldn't meet the end goal, we went back and forth with our regulators, with the EPA and the DEC, and we said, we'll keep going with the projects that make sense, but at the same time, we need to start looking for projects that are going to help us get to the end goal. And we'll introduce you to those projects, and we'll figure out a new plan in the middle of our old plan. And so we looked at 77 different projects. We looked at green infrastructure, inline storage, offline storage, sewer separation. So in some cases, it makes sense to separate the sanitary and the storm sewers, but it's not possible in much of the city of Buffalo because a lot of our streets are narrow and there's a lot of utilities in the way, and it is very expensive to start trying to separate sewers that have been combined for 125, 150 years. And so then we went through and we optimized what our model projection said, and we came up with 50 projects. It's costing about $1 billion to be completed over 15 years. And those consist of green infrastructure, and we say 50 sites. The green infrastructure is hundreds of sites for each area that we looked at. So ultimately, this is more than 50 sites throughout the city of Buffalo. We actually have hundreds of sites by the end of by the time we're done here, if you look at each and every installation of green infrastructure. We lumped the green infrastructure into big projects so that we weren't trying to talk about each individual little corner of roads. But then we also have areas where we're going to look at those weir structures and modify those weir structures. Look at places where we can store in the existing system or enlarge the pipes of the existing system so we can store. Areas where we can take the flow offline. There's also plans to construct a tunnel over in Niagara and into North District. So within Fillmore District, the first project is the Trenton and 4th Street SPP 206A and B modification. So this is looking at existing structures underground and modifying them to make them real time and allowing them two existing, again, an interceptor and a swan trunk, and rebalancing the flows between the two of them. Then the next one that we looked at would be Virginia and Busti. Again, there's an existing manhole in this case. We're going to be working just within that manhole. So some of these projects are going to be years. Some of these projects are a matter of a week or two that there will be traffic disruptions. This is one of those week or two traffic disruption projects. where we are just removing an existing piece of steel that's in a manhole and reconstructing the bottom of the manhole. Now I talked about Trenton and 4th Street. Part of that project, that's a smaller project, but then it's tied into this larger project within Waterfront Park of putting in a 5.55 million gallon underground storage tank. So we need to do a whole bunch of excavation, put in this underground chamber, and then put the dirt back on top of it and have it go back to being a playing field at the end of the day. And in the process, probably upgrading that playing field that's seen better days. But working with the Parks Department, working with the City of Buffalo government, and with those community groups that use that park to make sure that it ends up with its best use at the end of the day. Similarly, Smith at Clifford, there is an existing park over here. We would again be putting in an underground storage tank with this project. And over here is where, at Smith near Perry, this is where we have an existing chamber, and we're going to use the combination of these two to, again, create more storage capacity in our system so that we overflow less out to the Buffalo River. Fillmore and Clinton, again, this one is one of those in the manhole projects that we are, again, lowering that dam height. So we're taking existing concrete and we're jackhammering it out within the manhole and then restoring the dam to orderly fashion. But it's going to be a couple weeks of traffic disruption, and then we're gone. It's not going to be that impactful. Babcock and Howard, again, increase inline storage utilization, redirect some of the flows to the diversion instead of the downstream pump station. So again, it's modifications to the manhole. We're looking at starting, well, we've already started survey on this. So we're working on this one now. It's going to be ongoing, but again, we're not anticipating with this one that you're going to see much unless you're trying to get down the street on the 2 weeks that we're working there. Louisiana and Mackinac, this is along Conway Park, and then there's this open wilderness area here. There used to be a house here, but this whole parcel is now owned by New York State DEC. And we're going to be putting in some extra large sewer pipes through here. And we're actually starting survey on this very soon. And we're working with the City of Buffalo. They are planning to rehab Louisiana Street from Ohio Street all the way up past the bridge. And so we're working on what our schedule is, what their schedule is, how we can work together on timelines and reduce impacts to the community, but then also not only reducing combined sewer overflows, but also working to reduce some of the flood issues that happen down in the First Ward. We've also been in talks with the Parks Department. So this is streets, this is parks, and they are in the process of redoing Conway Park as well. So talking through who's doing what when, making sure we're all working together. And then the other piece would be modifying the manhole here at Mackinac, or at Louisiana and Republic. And this also helps with reducing those overflows at Louisiana and Mackinac. What happens today is that this flow goes out to this pipe here, which is called the Ohio Drain, which we talked about earlier, and goes right out to the Dead Creek out here, out to the Buffalo River. And hopefully Dead Creek will be a little less dead. So then we have Larkin and Roseville. This is Bass Alley offline storage. This is over in Larkinville. It's not Larkin and Roseville. This is off of Bass Alley. This is in Larkinville, and this is Fillmore over here. But there's this vacant parcel back in here where we would put in offline storage and capture flows so that and store in this back lot area here. Okay, then we have Larkin and Exchange, which is here. There is an existing sewer that is taking stormwater flow from the from around the railroad track, and it's then taking that stormwater, it's just stormwater, and it's putting it into the combined system. And instead of having it come into the combined system, we're looking at ways to reroute it so it goes out to the waterway and doesn't overwhelm the combined system. And hopefully also in the process, we can also reduce the flooding of the viaducts in the process. So that's the projects within Fillmore District. That's the history, that's the plan. And we're now here for questions and answers. And I think our translators, our ASL translators in particular, need some applause as well, because I don't know that there's an ASL word for weir.
We just use damn like you do. And that's really good. I got this one.
But any questions? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Stephanie.
What is the composition of the inspected and tested material used for the underground collection?
I'm sorry, what
is the composition rate expected and tested on material used for the underground collection?
the decomposition rate on the material used on the underground collection?
Yeah, I'm reading from somebody else's questions here, so.
Okay, so the underground storage facilities are going to dewater within 48 hours. And the level of decomposition, and then they are going to be flushed out. And so it's not expected that there's going to be significant levels of decomposition happening in those tanks. And they're also below grade. And again, that lessens the exposure to any odors, but they also lowers the rate of decomposition because you're now at ground temperature around there instead of being exposed to sunlight, which increases decomposition rates. So it's expected that there's going to be minimal issues of decomposition within these tanks. The decomposition really happens at the treatment facility, and that decomposition, when we get out to North District and Niagara District, where they are going to be, we're going to be talking more about the treatment facility when we get out there. We are in the process of our primary treatment facility upgrades, which is taking some of the decomposition odors that people along the Niagara Bike Trail smell today and pulling them through filters to decrease those odors. With these underground tanks, we're also looking into putting in similar odor control systems to lessen those issues. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Okay.
And if the soil side is found to be contaminated, will be remediated? I guess in this case, she wants to know, if it's found to be brownfield, which,
Okay, so as far as areas of contamination found during construction, we are going to go as, it's really, we need to look at what kind of contamination we are dealing with and the impacts of that contamination on the structures that we are constructing. So depending on the types of contamination, we may go out significantly into contaminated areas that we do not need to excavate for our construction because it can have a deleterious effect on the construction itself. It can leach into our facility. It can degrade the concrete. It can degrade the iron products. If it does not have the ability to leach into our system, if it does not have the ability to impact our system, we're really only going to go as far as we need to go to protect the workers during installation and during the construction. Our goal is not to remediate every brownfield site in the city of Buffalo. Our goal is to deal with combined sewer overflows. So we will deal with the brownfields as we encounter them during construction, but that's kind of secondary to what we need to accomplish and what we have funding and funding authority to accomplish. So again, it'd be, if we have brownfield funds available for a project, we will address more brownfield than we have to meet our goals, but the main piece is combined sewer overflows.
okay, wait back for a second. I just want to thank you all for what you're doing, because I know this is an antiquated system and it needs to be done. But I guess, no, what I'm trying to do is find out what it's going to look like. How is it going to affect the neighborhood? We want to make sure there's a healthy transition into the new system. And I just want answers as it's happening because we'll be a part of it. So like it says, the traffic, question beside this, I guess, rodent migration, noise pollution, the contamination. Like you talked about, I'm sorry, I'm saying a mouthful. These are probably just statements, but I just want to out there what our concerns are. The contamination as far as that, the brownfield, along with, and you probably working with the DEC, I'm hoping.
Yes, so anytime that we can, so there will be some sites that we are working within that are within known brownfield areas. And with those, we will work from the beginning with DEC on the existing remediation strategies that they have in place. There will be other times that during design, we will encounter contaminants. And so we will, again, work with DEC on a plan on how we are going to protect our workers and protect the public as well, and protect public health moving forward, making sure that contamination is not then using our system to migrate into other places. So there's 3 different ways that people can be impacted by contaminated sites during construction, both the workers that are down in the hole, but then the community at large. And then, like I said, the migration is also an issue, that if it leaches into our system can become a channel for that brownfield contamination to go somewhere else. And we don't want that to occur. So that's, again, where we need to work with DEC, brownfield and also spills. And so, So we work, Buffalo Waterkeepers is one of our stakeholders on our overall plan. And yes, they are aware of what we're doing, but really they are there. They are there as their main piece is the waterways themselves. Buffalo, or the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, they have scientists and engineers that specifically specialize in brownfields and also in spills management. And we have very good relationships with all of those individuals as well. Whereas DEC Water tends to be a regulator to Buffalo Sewer and hold us accountable often enough with DEC spills and DEC hazardous materials management. We're partners. We're working side by side and addressing the issues together, not as regulated and regulator, but as true partners in the process, because we didn't create the issue, they didn't create the issue. We both need to work to manage them together. So does that help?
Yeah, I have a lot of notes here, but I don't want to.
No. You take over. You did ask a question about rodent control.
That's the worst of the worst. The stinkiest, the nastiest. And that's where rodents like to be. They're comfortable. They've been there. That's their home. And now they're going to be disturbed.
Yes. Yes, so we are, as we're doing this work, we are actually taking best practices from New York City and from other larger cities that have even worse rodent problems than the city of Buffalo has, and taking their best practices for construction and incorporating them into our design specifications and what we have to hold contractors accountable, so that we're protecting the whole city of Buffalo, because Buffalo Sewer Authority, we're your neighbors too. We don't want rodents either. And so knowing that they do get stirred up during, especially these larger projects with a lot of hammering and other below ground issues, they are going to be stirred up. But there are trapping, there are other means that can be employed to reduce and potentially eliminate the issue of rodents. But having lived in Buffalo long enough, I don't know if we're ever going to eliminate the issue of rodents. We can just mitigate and reduce it. Yes, we are going to do everything, like I said, we are going to follow the best practices in order to mitigate that issue.
And I'm also, because our area, because of I'm still concerned because these houses are older, damage that could possibly happen. Business hours. There's just so many questions.
So, again, business hours, we do restrict our contractors. Generally, it's 8 to 4, or it can be 7:30 to 3:30. It depends on which community specifically we're working in and what that community's waking hours are, but it's Monday through Friday. They're off on holidays. And again, we're throughout the design process looking for ways that we can reduce those noise impacts, reduce those vibration impacts, looking at alternative routings, looking at, again, as I said at the beginning, this is our plan today. This is our best high-level plan of what we're doing. What exactly these projects look like on the ground. You saw those big blue shapes. I guarantee that at least one of those big blue shapes is going to change by the time it's a physical construction, because it's just going to, by the time we get there. There's likely to be something similar to that in each of those locations, but exactly what it will look like is going to change as we get into detailed design. And especially with those larger projects, we will be back with the community throughout that detailed design process. When I'm going to be in a manhole for a week, we'll probably let the council member know, we'll probably let the nearest block club know, but there's not going to be nearly as much back and forth with the community on those, because no one's going to show up to talk to me about what I'm doing in my manhole for a week. I will get one phone call from one concerned neighbor, but as far as having community outreach meetings, it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of my time to try to make those in the manhole a big thing. But the big projects, we will be here.
And what agencies are responsible for completing environmental testing or provide specific answers? Who does what?
So we work with our consulting partners to conduct the environmental reviews. They work with several certified labs and sub-consultants. We have done a lot of drilling work with ATL, Atlantic Testing. There are going to be numerous different sub-consultants doing different types of environmental impact documentation, testing, and reporting. Again, each of the larger projects will have a designated consultant assigned to the detailed design, and each of those consultants will have their own sub-consultants along the way. And we also have our program managers with T.Y. Lin and Arcadis. So there are a lot of different trained professionals from different firms involved. And we're trying to, again, also hire from the neighborhoods, make sure that we are hiring minority, women, and disadvantaged businesses and service disabled, veteran-owned businesses as well to complete this work, and as many City of Buffalo residents as we can as well. And so we're putting goals into all of our plans, all of our specifications to set goals for those hirings and for those employment of firms as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so Art's going to tell you more about those disadvantaged businesses and women-owned businesses and service-disabled businesses and all the other public outreach activities that we're undertaking here.
Thank you. Let's give Rosie round of applause. That's just outstanding information and Q&A sessions. And I promise I'm not taking over. I don't know. I have a habit of doing that, but I didn't do that now. Nevertheless, since I got the mic, we're going to talk about some of the community engagement and stakeholder activities that we've done. When we started this process, we proposed creating a guide, a rubric. When we are doing engagement, here are the indicators that we like to focus on when going into any project, any community. And we propose this, when I say we, the Hallmark team, who leads the engagement efforts for the program, proposed this to T.Y. Lin and the consultant team and the Buffalo Sewer Authority, that when we do this, we try to go in with these indicators to ensure that we are creating an equitable engagement opportunity as we go through the process. And so those are up there. We want to make sure that we're looking at it with the lens of community ownership, capacity building, creating healthy communities, preserving heritage, sustainable wealth creation, if need be, creating new and reformed policies for sustainable development, and then long-term growth management. These are just a lens and a guide to say, when we come into this, we're not just looking for opportunities to attend public meetings and events and just do some one-off engagements. We want to create an opportunity where there's healthy, sustainable communities over the course of the next 30 to 50 years. So we've done some initial engagement and interaction throughout the communities. We attended community meetings last year. We put out a survey and we've gathered some information. And all of this is just to help the process to become better for us to engage the community. In addition, one thing that we wanted to ensure that we were doing to create a more equitable opportunity for engagement was creating a stakeholder advisory committee. And this committee was done through an extensive process. We gathered the list of names, but then we created a rubric and a scoring system because we knew that we were going to reach out to a lot of good people, but we wanted to make sure that we had the right people that were for this particular program over the course of time. So these are just a few of the organizations that we ended up pulling from. We wanted to make sure that they were part of organizations that could help and advise us on the engagement strategy, on the community benefits agreement, and a few others that we are doing. So the Stakeholder Advisory Committee has been very instrumental. We have had a kickoff meeting. We talked about their role. We talked about our role. And then we had a strategic planning meeting where we used a methodology called the Spectrum of Engagement from International Association of Public Participation, where we focused on 5 phases of engagement, which is inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. And each of these phases, we looked at how can we create an engagement strategy that we put together, but we wanted to enhance it by collaborating with the stakeholder advisors. So putting ourselves in a position where the community can be a consultant to us, where we have listening sessions, where we can collaborate with the community with programs and services and things that they already have going on. We can get involved with them and identifying what are some of the things that where these programs are located, projects are located, where communities are already doing and where we intersect with them and we can collaborate on programs and other activities to keep them involved and for us to learn about the neighborhoods and communities that we're going to be working and serving in. I'm excited about this, and something that I did not do yesterday that I am going to do today because we are part of, in addition to this, creating a community benefits program. So now what does this mean? We're going to be doing all of this work throughout the city over the next several years, decade plus. How do we create those equitable opportunities? How do we create that sustainable wealth creation and getting those minority MWBE businesses involved, those businesses that are certified? And so I want to take just a minute to bring back to the microphone Mr. Walt Walker to talk a little bit about the Community Partnership Program.
So you heard earlier in Rosie's discussion summarizing Queen City Clean Waters and the 50+ projects, $1 billion in construction over the next 15 years. That's a lot of construction work, but with that work comes opportunity. There will certainly be a number of some of the larger contractors from outside City Buffalo and Erie County that'll be coming in to do this work. But with that opportunity, both on the professional services side, as well as the construction contractor side, we would ensure that the local community, City Buffalo residents, neighborhoods directly impacted by the Buffalo sewer projects, reap the benefits to those investments. So through this community partnership program, which we will formally launch later this year, to ensure that professional services providers and contractors deliver those positive economic, social, and environmental impacts, we're developing a mechanism in the contract, in those professional services and construction contracts, where based on the cost level of the contract, contractors will be required to enter into a partnership agreement with a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in the city of Buffalo, or a Buffalo public school, college, or university. And there'll be 4 focus areas that those contractors can focus that partnership on: education, workforce, individual workforce on the water sector and construction side, um, uh, economic development. When we talk about the small, minority, woman-owned business enterprises, disadvantaged business enterprises, service disabled, veteran-owned businesses, opportunities for economic growth, not just with existing companies in the city of Buffalo that have those certifications, but opportunities for new companies to enter the space, grow, and be a part of that economic opportunity from this water investment. And then lastly, the fourth area is partnerships that focus on public health. So collectively, with education, workforce, economic development, and public health, this partnership program, where those organizations are the direct beneficiaries through volunteer hours, in-kind financial contributions, and through a compliance mechanism to ensure that those contractors that say they're going to partner with the community at the start of a project ensure that they meet the commitment that they said they will throughout the life cycle of that project. So over the course of the next few months, we're going to be talking more about the community partnership program with the general public, the contracting community, so that they can be educated on the requirements, and our Queen City Clean Waters Stakeholder Advisory Committee to ensure that this program is set up for our partners in the city to succeed.
Thank you so much, Walt. And this is an opportunity for us to get the word out to our current businesses that are in the process of currently doing jobs, and those contractors and construction workers that are just launching. There's a lot of work that's going on throughout the city of Buffalo. There's a ton of projects everywhere from large, small development, not to mention we have this billion and some change development that's going out in Hamburg, which absorbed a lot of the contractors. So there's more than enough work to be out there. We want to make sure that we're cultivating those businesses to be able to participate with the projects that we'll have coming down the line. So opportunities to stay engaged. We have done boots on the ground. We've participated in meetings, events. We've done hard copies. One of the ways that we also wanted to make sure that we were reaching a broad geography and population and demographic is to ensure that we created a means where everyone can access opportunity to participate in this project, which is we created the Queen City Clean Waters Interactive website. And what this is designed to do is, number one, give you an overview of the project. We have some photos. We have a frequently asked questions section. So the wonderful questions that Madam President asked, she's already ahead of the game. She wrote some things on the sticky notes. If you look, we have 2 poster boards that's over here. We have one, which is a map of the actual district, and the other one, which is a frequently asked question poster board. We got a few questions that's on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, the reason it's blank is because we want to take the questions that you all have, put them on the sticky, stick them on that board, or we'll have a representative from the team to come around and collect those questions. We'll grab those questions. And we have a team collaboration. We take these questions back to the engineering team and to the consultant team, and then we provide answers to those questions, and then we will post those questions on the website. We will also have a hard copy brochure of these questions when we're out and about in the community, just so that people can have access to some basic questions about the program and projects within their neighborhood. We had some outstanding questions today, and those are questions that everyone needs to know, so we'll be sure to compile those and get those displayed on the website. We also want to take an opportunity to introduce you to 3 of the links that are on this website. Now, a good portion of you were here last night when we were at the Lovejoy meeting. However, those of you who were not, if you look on your table and you see there is a QR code, The QR code is here, but if you see the QR code on your table, take your electronic device. If you take a picture of the QR code or just hover your lens over the QR code, it will bring up the website. We'll ask you if you would just please take the time and the opportunity to fill out the survey. There are 3 sections on here. Section number 1 is a survey section. And what the survey is designed to do is to capture information about how we can better engage you. We want to make sure that you participate in this process. We're professionals. We have wonderful ideas. We have years of experience in doing this. And the one thing that we've learned in doing this for so many years is that we always learn from you. And we want to make sure that we continue to do that. And so you all are the experts. We want to make sure that we're engaging you and that you give us the information that we need so that we can better engage if there are additional, programs or meetings that we need to attend. How we can better get information out. Where do you listen to? What radio station? What social media network? So that we can better be prepared with that information. Also, the second section. So with our survey, you'll find it's just a series of multiple choice questions. It takes 4 minutes. Now, last night I said it took 3 minutes until everybody finished in 4 minutes. So I'm gonna tell you, it takes 3 minutes. But if you finish in 4, that's a minute of grace. So it only takes 3 minutes for you to fill out the survey, a series of multiple choice questions. There is a question at the end where you can give some content. But the reason we did that is so we can better analyze the responses, but also the next section is a community forum section. Now, this is a section where we have a question and you can just answer the question or you can just really provide information regarding what it is you want to know, if there are any other questions, comments that you have. There are other people who will respond. You can like their comment, you can respond to their comment, so it has a bit of a social media feel. And you can do a little bit more dialogue in the second section, which is the community forum. But then the third section we have is our interactive map. And this is kind of a visual of that. And if you click on our interactive map, we have color-coded the council district boundaries. And with the icons that you see, these are all of the projects in each of the districts of the city of Buffalo. If you click on the Fillmore district, which is this lime green district here, sorry about that, I got the laser, I apologize. The lime green district here, you can click on that district and see all of the programs, or the projects rather, from the program in that district. And you can identify where your house may be or your neighborhood. You can see what projects are nearby. You can click on those projects and it'll give you just a little bit of information on that project, what type of project it is, and the timeline of that project. Keep in mind, the timeline is general. We'll have more information coming as we get closer to those dates. But it's important to be able to look to see what's going on in your district. You may not live in the Fillmore district. You may live in the Maston district or the Lovejoy district or North. Click on your district, whether you're staff or not, and it will be projects that you can look into. Also, there's a legend that's there. You can filter out a district. You can also filter out projects. So either way, you can identify what's going on in the district. This site is also connected to the Buffalo Sewer Authority site. That is the main site. If you go to the Buffalo Sewer Authority, buffalosewer.org, you'll be able to stay up to speed with what's going on with the Buffalo Sewer Authority and also find information about other projects. And they do have a link on that site that is for the Queen City Clean Waters Project. Also, there's a link on the interactive website that will lead you back to the Buffalo Sewer Authority website. Thank you all so much for your time. This concludes our council district meeting for the Fillmore district. Thank you so much for your questions. If you have additional questions, please make sure that Kate gets these questions. Raise your hand, Kate. Please make sure Kate gets these questions, or if you want to put them on a poster board, that's just fine as well. And any additional questions will be around. If you want to come over and look at our poster map to see what projects are where, please come by the map. And also, if you have any conversation about what's going on in the district, if there's a particular place that you think, hey, some things good are really happening around here, or there's some opportunities, or there are some places that you think, hey, this may not be such a good place, communicate that to us so that we can have conversations around there and we can mark those. And that's very helpful for our team. And it's also very helpful for us to get to know what's going on in your district. Thank you again. And if you haven't, please get some more food because we're not taking it home. All right. Thank you all so much. And you have a wonderful evening. That was a good meeting, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Yes, that was a good meeting. Very good. Good evening.